I am going to bring back our jobs to Ohio and Pennsylvania and New York and Michigan. I pledge to never sign any trade agreement that hurts our workers or that diminishes our freedom and our independence. We will never, ever sign bad trade deals using the greatest business people in the world, which our country has. I am going to turn our bad trade agreements into great trade agreements.
That was President Trump accepting the nomination for president by the Republican Party back in July of 2016. So much has changed, though, between then and now. And I want to turn to our panel and get into that a little bit. Rick Newman, let me start with you. Obviously, COVID is different, but what else is different between that election and this election right now?
People are more anxious about everything, basically. We did a poll with Harris. We actually unveiled it a week ago when we were doing our special for the Democratic convention. I'll just give you some of the results about the level of concerns people have going into the election this year. So just looking at this on my computer, 88% say they're very concerned about public safety, healthcare 87%, economy 87%, public health 86%, that's the coronavirus, education 85%, and national debt 82%. In 2016, there was no single issue on which more than 80% of voters said they were concerned. So I don't think any of that is surprising. I mean, look what's happening. People are very concerned about what's happening with the coronavirus. And also, people are losing their health care as they become unemployed. So people are just there. We have more problems right now, and that is on voters' minds without a doubt.
Jess, let me ask you, there are all kinds of other differences as well, though, right?
Yeah, one difference that I think really sticks out to me is the fact that there is no doubt over the kind of president that Donald Trump will be. And you could make the argument that it was pretty clear who President Trump was back when he was a candidate. But I remember reporting in the Midwest in 2016 and talking to Republican voters who would say over and over again that Donald Trump will surround himself with the smartest people. He knows that he doesn't have experience in government, so he will surround himself with the best. He will listen to the advice of others. He will stop tweeting like he does. The Oval Office will change him. And I think that's very difficult to make that argument this time around.
Yeah, that's right. Kristen, so what about the electorate? How is that shaping into this election, maybe in a different way than previously?
Yeah, Andy, so we talk a lot about essentially who these voters are and the issues that are incredibly important to them. And lately, we've been talking a lot about the minority vote. So just to throw some statistics out there that is going to really come into play for the 2020 election, this is according to Pew Research, about a third of the eligible voters in this upcoming election are not going to be white. So that is a huge shift that we're seeing there just from a couple of years ago in the 2016 general election. And while there will always be a reliable indicator on what we're going to be expecting in the following general, some interesting statistics there when it comes to at least turnout. This one here is from Brookings. So Republican turnout in the 2018 election increased 27% from the previous midterm elections back in 2014. So that's great for Republicans. But then when you look over at the Democrats, their turnout actually increased by a whopping 70%, Andy. So we're seeing, at least when it comes to voter turnout, that Democrats are getting to the polls more and more. And as we already know, historically, Republicans have been incredibly enthusiastic when it comes to the elections. They are incredibly enthusiastic about the 2020 election. But we're going to have to see if having younger, more progressive, and also more non-white voters is at all going to change the results that we're going to see at the general in November.
If I could just add a couple points to what Kristen's talking about. Another important change is this core group of Trump voters in 2016. You might call them nativists, the people to whom Make America Great Again really appealed. Those are, I mean, there is a significant portion of the U.S. electorate that is very nervous about legal immigration and obviously illegal immigration. You could say they are anti-immigration, and that cohort is getting a little bit smaller. They tend to be older white people, working class white people in the Midwest. Time is simply claiming some of them, and they are just becoming a smaller portion of the overall electorate. One other thing I think is really important is what's been happening with civil rights protests, George Floyd protests. If the black voter turnout in 2016 had been at the same levels as in 2012, Hillary Clinton probably would have won. So black voter turnout is a huge issue this time around. And because of what's been happening with the protests and having a black woman on the Democratic ticket, that would probably seem to be a plus on the Democrat side this time around.
Well, Jessica, let me turn to you because that's kind of a bone of contention here. Can either candidate swing voters one way or the other? In other words, are there any undecided voters, or is the whole thing about turnout both on the Democrat side and the Republicans?
I mean, it is always about turnout, but I do think there are some undecided voters out there. We talked to one last week during our special at the DNC when I talked to a Wisconsin farmer who said he still has not made up his mind because he hasn't heard enough from Vice President Biden when it comes to agricultural policies and whatnot. So I think that is something that we're going to hear from others, especially in those swing states, people who are just still trying to make up their minds. But I don't think the conventions are going to really change many people's minds. I think once we start getting into the debates, that's when people will start really making their decisions. Most of these conventions are a show for the party. So I don't think we'll see a lot of people flip or make their mind up one way or another this week.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.